The school bell rings, signaling the start of another day. Inside Mrs. Thompson's classroom, students chatter excitedly, but 16-year-old Amara sits quietly in the back, trying to blend into the background. She pulls her hoodie over her head, hoping not to draw attention. Mrs. Thompson, a strict and harsh teacher, walks in with a clipboard. She scans the room, her eyes briefly landing on Amara before she looks away dismissively. "Let's get started," she announces with a sharp tone. Amara feels a cold chill run down her spine, knowing today may be another rough day. Amara's heart beats faster. The teacher never seems to stop picking on her. The class begins with a lesson on history, but Amara's mind drifts, the pressure of being constantly watched and judged by Mrs. Thompson weighing heavily on her. She wonders why the teacher seems to dislike her so much. Was it her skin color? Her quiet demeanor? She isn't sure, but every day feels like an uphill battle. Amara had always been a quiet, introspective student. At school, she did her best to stay out of the spotlight. But in Mrs. Thompson's class, things were different. The teacher's words often felt like daggers, each one designed to hurt. Today, the lesson was on the Civil War, and Mrs. Thompson had asked a question to the class. Who can tell me the significance of the Emancipation Proclamation? Several hands shot up, but Mrs. Thompson ignored all but Amara's. "Amara, you should know this, shouldn't you?" She sneered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Amara felt the familiar pang of anxiety. It freed the slaves," she answered quietly, feeling the weight of the teacher's eyes on her. Mrs. Thompson raised an eyebrow. "Is that all? Surely you can say more than that. Or are you just another student who can't seem to get it right?" The class fell silent, a few classmates exchanging uncomfortable glances. Amara could feel the heat of shame creeping up her neck. Why did it always feel like Mrs. Thompson was waiting for her to fail? It was as if the teacher's eyes saw her as less than the others, not because of her intellect, but because of the color of her skin. As the lesson continues, Mrs. Thompson continues to target Amara, calling on her in every section, even when it's clear Amara is not prepared. She answers some questions, but the ridicule is never far behind. "Amara, are you even paying attention?" Mrs. Thompson asks, loud enough for the entire class to hear. "You really shouldn't waste my time if you're not going to participate." Amara's face burns. Her classmates glance at her sympathetically, but no one speaks up. She can feel the isolation tightening around her. She was used to being the quiet girl, but being humiliated in front of everyone made her want to shrink even more. After class, Amara rushes to the bathroom, tears welling up in her eyes. She stares at her reflection in the mirror, taking deep breaths. Why does she hate me? Amara wonders. Is it because I'm different? Because I'm black? Her thoughts are interrupted by a voice. "Amara?" She looks up, startled. It's Lena, one of the few people who's always been kind to her. Lena gives her a small smile. "Are you okay?" Amara nods quickly, wiping away a stray tear. "Yeah, just tired." Lena's eyes narrow. "I saw what happened in class. Mrs. Thompson is way out of line. You don't deserve that." Amara doesn't know how to respond. She's not used to people standing up for her. "Thanks, Lena," she says quietly. That evening, Amara sits with her father, Mr. Williams, at the dinner table. Her dad notices the quiet tension in the room and sets down his fork. "What's wrong, Amara? You're not yourself today." Amara hesitates. She's always tried to protect her father from the struggles she faces at school, but today it's too much. "It's Mrs. Thompson," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. She treats me differently. She picks on me in class." Her father's brow furrows. "What do you mean? What's going on?" Amara hesitates, but then tells him everything about how Mrs. Thompson mocks her answers, how she's always singled her out, making her feel like she's less than everyone else. She doesn't want special treatment just because he's the principal, but she also can't keep letting the bullying slide. "I don't want to be treated differently, Dad," Amara says softly, "but it hurts." Her father's face grows serious. "Amara, no one should treat you like that, no matter what your last name is. You deserve respect, and we're going to do something about it." The next day, Amara walks into Mrs. Thompson's class, her heart pounding. She knows her father has a conversation with the teacher, but she doesn't know what to expect. Mrs. Thompson, as usual, immediately targets Amara. "What's the answer, Amara?" But Amara has a new resolve today. She raises her hand and calmly answers the question, not letting the teacher's tone rattle her. The Emancipation Proclamation was a major step in ending slavery, but it didn't free everyone. It was just the beginning. Mrs. Thompson glares at her, but Amara doesn't back down. "Actually, Mrs. Thompson, I don't appreciate being treated like this in class. I'm a student just like everyone else, and I deserve respect." The room is silent. Her classmates look at each other, shocked by Amara's boldness. Amara continues, her voice strong. "You've been picking on me for weeks, and I don't understand why. I've done nothing to deserve it. You're my teacher. You're supposed to help me, not tear me down." Before Mrs. Thompson can respond, the door opens and Mr. Williams walks in, his presence commanding attention. "Amara, I think it's time we had a conversation with Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Williams says calmly. Mrs. Thompson stammers, but it's clear she knows the game is up. The students watch as the principal speaks with the teacher in private. Amara stands there, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. She did it. She spoke up. That afternoon, after the confrontation, Mr. Williams takes Amara to the park. They sit on a bench, and her father places a hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing, Amara. You showed courage when it mattered most, and that's something to be proud of." Amara smiles, feeling lighter than she has in weeks. "I didn't want to get anyone in trouble. I just wanted to stand up for myself." "You did more than that," her father says. "You taught everyone in that class a valuable lesson. It's never okay to stay silent when we're treated unfairly." As they walk home, Amara feels a new sense of confidence growing inside her. She doesn't need to be loud to be strong. She doesn't need to change who she is. She just needs to remember that she deserves to be treated with kindness and respect just like anyone else. And from that day forward, Amara carries that strength with her, knowing she's never alone in her fight for justice. We hope you enjoyed this story. PLZ like, share, and subscribe for more related content. Thanks for watching.